My in-laws publicly accused me of being a shameless gold digger, so I exposed their ugly truth at their anniversary party and shattered their lies forever. My husband, Landon, 36 years old, and I, 34 years old, have been together for 12 years and married for 9. We have pretty much been soulmates and get along well for the most part, except when it comes to my in-laws. I don't know why, but my in-laws have never really liked me or accepted me as part of the family. I honestly did not know the real reason until a couple of days ago when they finally revealed it at their anniversary party. Before I get into that, I need to provide some context about the situation I'm in. Landon is what one would call a house husband. 1 year into our marriage, we realized I was earning significantly more money than he was, as I was working at my father's electrical appliance business and training to take over once he retired. Landon said he wanted to stay home and take care of household chores because he truly hated his job and felt it was a waste of time. I thought it was a significant decision, but as long as he was fine with it, I was too. It was a mutual decision, and we have stuck to it for the past 8 years. My father retired nearly 6 years ago, and since then, I have been the CEO of our company. I don't mean to brag, but I earn a substantial income. My husband is happy, and so am I. I don't understand why anyone else would have a problem with it, but for some reason, my in-laws assumed Landon was the primary breadwinner of the family. To be fair, we never explicitly told them about our arrangement, mainly because my in-laws are very old school and orthodox. Landon knew that if they learned he was a house husband and not working, they would lose their minds. He said he didn't want the trouble of telling them the truth, so we never disclosed that he hadn't been working for the past 8 years. Whenever we met them, we pretended he was still employed at his previous company, but avoided details and changed the topic quickly because we didn't think it was important enough to discuss. This way, we avoided awkward discussions and unnecessary conversations, and we were content with that. On top of that, they already disliked me by the time Landon and I got married, so I didn't want to worsen things by revealing that he stayed home while I worked and earned the money. Many of you might wonder why I still tried to get along with them and maintain contact, even though it was clear they didn't like me. Landon has apologized for this several times, but there was no way we could permanently cut them out of our lives. My mother-in-law, Sheila, is a cancer survivor and has battled 2 types of cancer in the past 8 years, first skin cancer, then brain cancer a couple of years later. She's a very lucky lady who has survived both and is in remission now, but after all she's been through, we couldn't find it in ourselves to cut them off. If that wasn't bad enough, my father-in-law, Bob, has had 2 heart attacks in the past 4 years. I guess you can understand the position we were in and why we couldn't cut them out of our lives despite their strange behavior toward me. I wouldn't say they were rude or nasty to me like some in-laws are, but whenever I was around, they were always very cold, and everyone in the room could sense it. Even when I was dating Landon and met their family for the first time, they were a bit off, but after we got married, they became even more distant and cold. Given their health conditions, I decided to suck it up and deal with it because I didn't want to be the person who told Landon to cut his parents out of his life, just because they were a bit weird around me. He was extremely thankful to me for that. The real reason I felt bad for them was that I had lost my mother to cancer a couple of years before I met Landon, so I didn't want to make matters worse for them. I even tried to help them financially whenever I could. Both of them are retired, so they sometimes asked Landon to help cover certain expenses. Since Landon didn't have any money, I would write the checks, but I always made it seem like the money came from both of us because if it was just me, it might have seemed suspicious, and we didn't want them to figure out that Landon wasn't working. In the past 8 years, every event they've had, every vacation they've taken, every fancy thing they've done has been thanks to me. I would think they'd be a little thankful even if they believed it was both Landon and me contributing. I still believe that since I was part of it, I deserved some appreciation, but I never had any luck with them. Recently, I even organized their anniversary party to celebrate their 40th year of marriage. Of course, they thought Landon and I organized it together, but I was still a part of it, so I expected some gratitude. However, at the party, they decided to make a particularly nasty speech, and after that, I think there's no going back to having a relationship with them. In retaliation, I cleared up certain things that were long overdue. As soon as we arrived at the party, Landon's parents started acting strangely almost immediately. I couldn't figure out why at the time, but during their speech I realized it was because of my new car. A couple of weeks ago I bought a fancy new luxury car for myself. Landon still drives his old one because he doesn't go out much, and if we need to go somewhere together, we use my car. That day, Landon had gone to his parents' house in the afternoon, and I arrived in the evening after work, so we came separately, and I drove my own car. I guess that rubbed Landon's parents the wrong way. When they were asked to make a speech for their anniversary, they said they were celebrating 40 years together, but also wanted to address something that had been bothering them. They turned to me and said they didn't appreciate that I had been mooching off their son for so long, and they wanted to put an end to it. They claimed they hadn't said anything for years because they thought I would change, but it had been almost 9 years, nearly a decade, and I hadn't changed my ways. They went on to talk about how I had bought a new car and called it shameless of me to do so with my husband, money, while their son was still driving an old car. They also said it wasn't lost on them that their son dressed modestly while I was always dressed in expensive brands from head to toe, which they thought was a brazen and unnecessary display of my dependence on my husband. They wanted to address this issue publicly because they had stayed quiet long enough, and now wanted to make me realize I was being a gold digger. After that speech, I completely lost it. Being cold to me was one thing, but humiliating me publicly like that was unacceptable. I decided to take over the event and made my own speech to clear everything up. Since then, Landon's parents have been constantly bothering us because they think we made fools of them. For the record, Landon has no problem with what I said because he knows it's the truth, and it was bound to come out eventually. Once they finished their speech, I got on stage. They tried to stop me, saying it wasn't necessary to have a debate. But I told them it was not only necessary, but very important for them to hear me out. I clarified that for the past 8 years, Landon hadn't worked a single day, and it was all thanks to me. I told everyone in the family the secret we had been keeping for so long. Landon was a house husband, and I was the breadwinner. Contrary to what my in-laws believed, I had been financing them all along, and they were ungrateful enough to make a horrible speech about me in public. I also told them that Landon wore modest clothes and drove an old car by his choice. But no one could accuse me of depriving him or making him feel small, as they had tried to do to me. I said that not telling them the truth about our financial situation might have been my mistake, but it probably wouldn't have changed anything, and they would have found another reason to hate me. For the past 8 years, every time we helped them financially, it was clear I had an equal part in supporting them, but they were never grateful. We had lied to them for our peace of mind because even before we started lying, they disliked me for no reason. Since the truth was finally out, I saw no reason to stick around and be insulted by them anymore. Landon and I left, but before we did, we saw the disgusted looks on the guests' faces. After we got home, it felt like a burden had been lifted off our shoulders. We had been keeping up these lies for 8 years, and now that the truth was out, we had nothing to worry about anymore. The next day, Landon's parents called him and said what happened at the party was incredibly wrong. We thought they might apologize or try to sort things out, but instead, they called us horrible people for lying to them for so long. They said I was a terrible person for making that humiliating speech against them, making them seem like bad parents. First, I don't think I made them seem like anything. I just held up a mirror to them. I might agree we were wrong for lying, but honestly, what choice did we have? If we hadn't lied, they probably would have made our lives a nightmare by constantly bothering us about our situation and harassing Landon to get a job. He wouldn't have been able to cut them off because of their illnesses, and we would have gone crazy with guilt if we did. I can still justify the lying because they disliked me from the beginning, even before we did anything. I can't understand why they always hated me, even though they knew I was contributing financially to help them when they needed it, as all the checks we sent had my name on them along with Landon's. When Landon demanded an answer, they had nothing to say and tried to switch the topic back to how we had lied and fooled them for years, claiming my speech made everyone hate them almost instantly. Landon insisted they explain why they hated me so much, because at this point, we needed to know. They knew I had played a huge role in organizing their anniversary party and had spoken to all the vendors, and they could see for themselves that I was involved. Even then, it wasn't enough for them. Landon was saying all these things, but then I heard screaming from the other end. Landon's mother was so loud that I could hear her even though I was sitting a few inches away. She said we had been gaslighting them for years, and she would never forgive us. She claimed that because of my speech, everyone in their life hated them, and she was disgusted with both of us. Then she hung up. They've been texting Landon, a lot, saying we need to tell them how much money they owe us because they don't want to take any favors from me. They wanted to return everything I had helped them with, even if it meant selling everything they had. They said they were fine with their son helping them, but if it was me, they didn't want it because I was a liar. Now I'm feeling weird about all of this and guilty. Am I the asshole for lying to my in-laws about my husband having a job and for making a speech at their anniversary party to expose the truth? Update 1. It has been 1 week since the party, and Landon and I decided it would be in our best interest to block my in-laws and move on. Clearly, there's no reasoning with them because they just want an excuse to hate me. They always disliked me. I'll agree we probably shouldn't have lied to them for so long because that definitely made them feel betrayed. But I don't think telling them the truth would have made them like me any better. We kept in touch with them because I felt bad about their illnesses and I didn't want to take their son away from them. Now Landon has had enough. He's been apologizing to me every day since the party, thinking it's all his fault, but I told him he's not responsible for his parents' actions. Many of his relatives have reached out to me to say they stand with me and that what my in-laws did at the party was unacceptable. Most people have cut my in-laws off. I wouldn't say I feel good about it because they're just a lonely old couple, so I'm not going to encourage it. However, I'm not going to discourage it either. It's people's personal choice whether they want to cut them off, and I won't interfere. All of this has really frazzled my nerves, and I just want to stop thinking about it and move on with my life. Landon and I are planning a short trip this weekend to get away from all this drama. At least one good thing will come out of this. We'll use it as an excuse to have some time to ourselves and process everything. Update 2. A couple of days ago, Landon and I blocked Bob and Sheila everywhere, leaving no stone unturned to ensure they couldn't contact us. Yesterday, we left in the morning for a short trip to the beach, but I received a phone call from the alarm company saying someone had tried to break into our house, setting off the alarms. I was instantly willing to bet my entire bank balance it was Bob and Sheila. As soon as I got the call, I logged into our security cameras to review the footage, and of course, it was them. They had been standing outside our door, ringing the bell for almost 15 minutes before trying to get in other ways. They managed to do so by breaking the glass bay window in our living room with bricks they had brought, probably for that purpose. I made a note of it so I could sue them later and recover the cost because it was an expensive window to install. It was also bold of them to try, given their age and circumstances. They hadn't left when I received the call, and while reviewing the footage, I realized they were still in our house. I called the cops immediately and informed my neighbor, who is a good friend, about what was happening. Within half an hour, the cops arrived and escorted them off our property. Now, the district attorney gets to decide whether they'll be charged. They probably won't be because they're elderly and could claim senility or something, but it really pissed me off that they did this. I contacted my neighbor, and she arranged for someone to install a makeshift glass to replace the shattered one, but it's much cheaper than the original, so we'll need to replace it with something better when we get back. Mark my words, I'll make sure Bob and Sheila pay for the damage, and not just that, I'll demand every penny back. Their antics are really getting to me, but Landon and I wanted to spend the weekend together, and we decided nothing would stop us, not even their behavior. We're still spending the weekend at the beach and we'll deal with everything when we return to the city. Update 3. As I expected, the district attorney dropped the charges against them, given their age. Landon told me his dad is good friends with someone related to the district attorney, which might have played a role, and it feels really unfair, but I'm not going to pursue it anymore since it's not worth it. After a full sweep of the house, we realized nothing was missing, so they didn't steal or damage anything inside. To be frank, I don't even know what they were doing there. I'm still sending them a legal notice to pay for replacing the glass window. I've already emailed them saying they need to return all the money they owe since they boldly claimed they didn't want a single dollar from me. Now they can return the favor and pay back everything I've spent on them. We calculated it, and over the past 9 years they've accumulated nearly $80,000 in debt to me. I might have felt bad about it, but after the break-in, I don't think they deserve my pity. Landon says I'm doing the right thing, and I think I'm doing it late. I've always tried to be kind and generous, but some people don't deserve it. My lawyer says the footage clearly shows they caused the damage, so they'll have to pay for the window. He's not sure if we can recover the rest of the money since there's no contract or legal document to prove anything, so that might be difficult. I'll keep emailing them until they agree to pay it back or until one of us gets tired, preferably them. Honestly, I don't need the money as badly as they do, but after all the humiliation I've faced, I don't think it's worth letting it go. Update 4. A couple of weeks ago, we sent a legal notice to my in-laws, demanding they pay for replacing the glass window in our house. It was a straightforward process, and within 2 weeks we reached a settlement and they paid the full amount. The worst part wasn't the process but seeing them and the interaction that followed. We had to maintain decorum during the meeting with our lawyers, so they didn't act like crazy old people, but once we were in the parking lot, it was anyone's guess. I figured they wouldn't have anything more to say, and Landon and I were about to go home. We had driven there in my new car, the one they had a huge problem with, and I should have guessed. They'd think I was rubbing my wealth in their faces. Sheila came right up to me while Bob stood behind her, spat on the ground beside my feet, and told me to get out of there quickly, or I'd regret it. I was caught completely off guard. She said this was exactly what I deserved for humiliating them at their party because now nobody wants anything to do with them and it's all my fault. When Landon came to my side and said their behavior was unacceptable, she told him she didn't want to speak to him because he was just as nasty as I was and a humongous loser with no money of his own, so he had no right to say anything. Then, I don't know what got into Bob, but he climbed onto the hood of my car and punched the windshield so hard that he not only injured himself but also cracked it slightly. Sheila thought she was being clever and said I didn't need to worry because she'd send me the money to fix it, along with what she already owed me. Landon and I were dumbfounded and had no idea how to react. We would have called the cops, but they were let off with a slap on the wrist once before, and we were sure it would happen again. We decided to ignore it since we'd get the money back anyway, so it didn't matter. All we wanted was to move on, and we don't care if they get punished because, after this, they'll be on their own, and that's punishment enough. We don't need to involve the law anymore since we're done and don't want the hassle. That's what happened. And now we're looking forward to living a peaceful life with nothing to do with Bob or Sheila anymore because they're not worth our time or energy. Earlier I said I didn't want them completely isolated from the family, but I've changed my mind. Landon has contacted most of his relatives, told them everything that happened, and said that from this point forward, if Bob and Sheila are invited to family gatherings or holidays, we won't attend. Most people have responded positively, saying they want nothing to do with them, especially after what they learned from us. The line has been drawn, and it won't be crossed anymore. Update 5. It's been almost 1 year since I posted here, and something happened yesterday that I wanted to share. I'm pregnant. We found out a couple of weeks ago, and yesterday we threw a party to announce the pregnancy, inviting a bunch of people. We weren't exactly planning this, and I was skeptical because I'm almost in my late 30s now, but it felt right, so we're going ahead with it. Everyone's really happy about it. After nearly a year of no contact, guess who showed up uninvited at our party? Yep, it was Sheila and Bob. When they arrived at our door almost 1 hour before the party was supposed to begin, I did something I'd been waiting to do from the beginning. When Sheila said she wanted to put everything in the past and start fresh now that she was going to be a grandmother, I spat on the ground and told her to get lost, just as she had done to me a year ago, and I slammed the door. They kept ringing the doorbell for a couple of minutes. But I opened the door and told them that if they didn't leave, I'd call the cops again, and this time I wouldn't let them off so easily. They demanded to speak to Landon, but he came out and said that since he wasn't an earning member of the family and was such a humongous loser, he didn't feel worthy enough to have any discussion with them, and it would be better if they left. They were humiliated enough and left. We're really happy because now I can demand a restraining order against them. Now that I'm pregnant, I don't want to risk anything. I don't want them in my life ever again, and I'm going to make sure of it. Update 6. It's been a few months since the pregnancy announcement party, and life has been surprisingly calm for Landon and me. We've been focusing on preparing for the baby, setting up the nursery, and enjoying this new chapter. I'm now in my second trimester, and we're thrilled about welcoming our child in a few months. However, true to form, Bob and Sheila couldn't let us have peace for long. Yesterday we received a letter in the mail, which was unexpected since we had blocked them on every possible platform. The letter was from Sheila, written in her usual dramatic tone, claiming they wanted to make amends before the baby arrives. In the letter, Sheila wrote that she and Bob had been reflecting on their actions over the past year and felt they had been too harsh. She said they were willing to forgive us for lying about Landon's job and my speech at their 40th anniversary party if we would agree to let them be part of their grandchild's life. I couldn't believe the audacity. After everything, humiliating me publicly, breaking into our house, damaging my car, they thought they could just waltz back into our lives? Landon read the letter and laughed out loud, saying it was typical of his parents to act like they were doing us a favor by forgiving us. We discussed what to do and decided not to respond directly. Instead, we contacted our lawyer to strengthen the restraining order we had been working on. The letter mentioned they wanted to meet in person to discuss family unity, but we're not falling for it. Given their history, we're worried they might show up uninvited again, especially now that I'm pregnant and more vulnerable. Our lawyer suggested documenting everything, so we've kept the letter and informed our neighbors to keep an eye out for any suspicious activity around our house. To be honest, I don't feel guilty anymore about cutting them off. I've spent years trying to be kind, helping them financially, and organizing events like their anniversary party, only to be treated like I was the problem. Landon agrees, and he's been amazing through all of this. constantly reassuring me that we're doing the right thing for our growing family. We've also been overwhelmed with support from other relatives, who have made it clear they're on our side. One of Landon's cousins even told us that Sheila tried to call her, crying about how we're keeping them from their grandchild, but the cousin shut it down, saying they lost that privilege with their behavior. For now, we're focusing on the positive. We've planned a small baby shower for next month, and we're only inviting people who truly care about us. I'm also working on finalizing the repairs for the car windshield Bob damaged. Sheila did send a check for the repair as she promised, but we're still waiting on the rest of the money they owe us, nearly $80,000 from the past 9 years. Our lawyer is skeptical. We'll get it all back, but we're not giving up. If they want to play the family card now, they can start by paying what they owe. Until then, we're keeping our distance and looking forward to a peaceful life with our baby.